What's up, guys? My name is Andy, and this is my podcast. It's good to be back. I guess technically it was only last week I didn't upload an episode, but on my end, I haven't recorded in a few weeks. I was able to record a couple episodes in advance and get those up a few weeks ago, and then last week I didn't upload a new episode. I've been off on my end for a few weeks because I just had a total hip replacement surgery on my left side, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get up and down the stairs or even get in my chair that I record in because it sits low, and so everything went well. I've lived a very full life in a very short amount of time, so I, I live my life, or I have lived my life by the philosophy of it is far better to wear out than to rust out. So I try to put those principles into practice. And by God's grace, I'm going to get the other hip done in a couple months. So that'll be two major surgeries within a few month time frame. So if you think about it, keep me in your prayers. That would be awesome. Because they're not like super enjoyable. It's not like, woo, this is fun to do. But by God's grace, everything went well, and I'm able to record again. So God is good, and I'm thankful for that. So all that to say, it's good to be back in front of this microphone, doing a podcast here with y'all. So today I thought we could talk about briefly here is Mamdani. Mamdani is the candidate for mayor in New York City. It looks like he is going to win. Now, despite the fact that he's never really had a job in his life, and he's the children of immigrants, and he's from a billionaire family, all that aside, he is a Muslim and he is a commie. So, and by all accounts, it looks like he is going to win in New York. The interesting thing is I saw today, and I can't remember the exact number, but it showed the numbers as far as who voted for whom based on demographic, native-born Americans and then immigrants. And the native-born Americans, I think, voting for Mamdani, I think it was like 30%. And then immigrants, it was like 69, 70%. It was very high. So it just shows how immigration can completely flip a city, right? You get enough immigrants in a city, they can completely flip it and change the entire, it doesn't just change the demographic of a country, it changes the complete ideology of a country. Painfully so, as we see all over Europe. Germany, France, England, Ireland, they've all pretty much fallen to the Muslim hordes. And it's really, really sad and really tragic, and they all seem to be self-inflicted wounds, and it's a horrible, horrible thing. So you have a Muslim commie who it looks like this guy's going to be mayor of New York, and a lot of people are talking about it. So I thought maybe I could just say a couple things regarding that may add to the conversation. I don't just give you my perspective on it and what I'm kind of thinking about it and what I'm seeing down the pipe on this thing. And I don't think any of it is good. So some of this you've probably already heard. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard these things, but maybe I can add something of value to the conversation. Hopefully I can, and I'm not just repeating talking points here. So, like I said, a lot of people are talking about this, and rightfully so. He's a Muslim, he's a commie, and interestingly enough, those two ideologies look very much the same. They function. They're both theocracies. One's a non-theocracy, the state is God, but they both function like theocracies. They're both monotheistic. They're both violent and domineering and oppressive and idolatrous and disgusting. And it's interesting how those two can function simultaneously, how somebody could be a Muslim and have absolutely no problem with communism, in part because it functions very much the same way. politically. That's a bit of a squirrel, bit of a rabbit trail, but I think it's worth considering, and I also think it's very interesting. And I've said this before, but it's worth repeating that we have three religions jockeying for supremacy in our country right now: Islam, secularism, and Christianity, and there is no middle ground. There's no neutrality on any of these things, and the sooner we realize this, the better off we will be. And the sooner we realize this, the less harm we will cause to ourselves and the less violence we will see down the road for our children and our children's children's children, which we should want to carry that mantle now so that they don't have to later. So a lot of people are talking about him, and they're talking about him in relation to essentially his communism, right? People have brought up that he's a Muslim, and this isn't good. But a lot of times when people bring that up, they're quickly dismissed. So a lot of people aren't really wanting to go there, although I think that's a very, very significant thing that I'll get to here in a second. But most people are bringing up what this is going to do economically to the city. You can look at other major cities in our country where you have progressive socialists as mayors, and the cities are not doing well, to say the least. They're doing very, very poorly. I mean, Chicago is a pretty good example of that. However, Mamdani's a completely different bird, because not only is he's not a socialist, he's a communist, and he's a Muslim. So he's a completely different bird. Like he's worse than just a progressive socialist. That's bad enough, but I think he's far worse than that. And don't let the guy's smile fool you. The devil's den should be the least comforting thing to us. So we can look at other cities, not just other cities. We can look at every single place in the world where communism or socialism has been tried, and it's an absolute flipping disaster. Every single place, every single time, without exception. But the promises are great. We will give you all of this stuff, and it's free, which is, if you believe that, you're retarded. But that apparently retards are not in short supply. So there we go. Right? People are talking about how wealth is going to leave the city and crime is going to increase. And I believe that all of that is true. And in relation to this, people are looking at the city and saying, you know what? You get what you deserve, right? If you elect him in, fair enough. We're going to sit back and we're going to watch the city burn type thing. Pretty soon you're going to realize that you don't want this. And it's not going to take very long for you to get there. So it's this kind of laissez-faire approach from a distance. Not my circus, not my monkey. This is going to be fun to watch. Let me get my popcorn and watch Nineveh burn type thing. So part of me is sympathetic to that. I think, you know what? If that's what they want, that's what they're going to get. However, at this point, what else do you do, right? What else can you do? Well, I wanted to do this podcast because I thought, no, there's more to it than that. And we should be far more concerned about New York than that. And so I don't know that there's much that we can do at this point. So this is more so of a warning to, I guess, anybody that's willing to listen, conservatives and mostly my brothers and sisters in Christ. Is that really how we should look at this, and really, what can we expect to be the result of this? Because this is not something that's going to be isolated to New York, and it's not just something that's like, oh, the economy is doing really bad in New York, but it'll recover in 4 years, somebody else will get elected type thing. That's how we have a tendency to think about these things. But oftentimes the harm that's done has a reverberation effect through generations. And I think Mamdani is a completely different bird that is going to do considerably more harm than just, the city is hurt economically. I think there's a lot more going on. So I say that because I think there's a lot more going on here, right? After Trump was reelected, we were all kind of going, okay, what's their play? What are the Democrats going to do? Because it's not as though they're going to have a reasonable assessment of where they're at. It's not as though they're going to go, okay, our policies are absolutely destructive. They've never worked anywhere, and we are entirely batshit crazy. Maybe we should reflect on these things a little bit. Maybe we should have some degree of reflection, and then by God's grace, repentance, because it's bad. They haven't done any of that. In fact, they've doubled down, and most of us knew that they would double down because they're nuts. So the question is, how nuts are they, right? What are we looking at? Are we going to have another pandemic? And people were talking about that, and it's like, well, people are kind of wise to that now, and all of the shutdowns, people have had enough. They're probably not going to fall for that again. Well, what else are they going to try to do? A lot of people are like, well, some type of economic subterfuge or sabotage or these types of things that screw up the economy. Either way, the idea is that they would inflict harm upon the nation. And the reason they would do that is to make Trump look bad so that they can get back in power. It is absolutely and utterly disgusting. They're willing to burn the entire thing down just to rule over the ashes. It's absolutely deplorable and horrible. I stole their word there, deplorable. There you go. You're welcome. But so a lot of people, myself included, getting the popcorn. Okay, how's this thing going to go down? What are they going to do? Type thing. And because the Democrats really since then have been kind of all over the place. And it's usually just one mess after the other. But they are disruptive. They're very disruptive and they're very destructive. And our problem, I heard someone say this a while back, and I'm not sure I can get it right, but I think it's just a pretty good rough and ready assessment of things. They said Republicans look at the Democrats like they're clowns. As I said that, many of you are probably like, well, because they are, which is true. However, he said Republicans look at the Democrats like they're clowns, and we have a tendency to not take them seriously. And then we just kind of dismiss them and we go back to our business. We don't, because they're clowns, we don't perceive them as a threat. The Democrats, on the other hand, they look at us like we are evil, and they make decisions accordingly. And they look at us like we are always the threat. And I think that dynamic is very much in play, and it is very much concerning. So they are disruptive, and they have been disruptive. Although they look, it's embarrassing and it's bad, and their leaders are comically bad, right? Anytime you listen to them speak, it's like dinner for schmucks. I don't know if you've seen the movie, it's a movie reference, but it's like that. Think about the weirdest, craziest, stupidest people around a table that you can, and most awkward people. And that's like a Democratic committee meeting, right? It's that bad. So they've been all over the place, and we're going, okay, what's their play? They're going to try to do this. Oh, okay, they're going to try to do this. So far, they've just been making a lot of noise in different places. I think New York is actually the play. I think everything up to this point has been noise, and I think it's still noise to kind of distract from a centralized focus on New York. I think New York is the play. I think getting a Muslim commie elected as the mayor of New York is a massive, massive victory for them, not just for them, but for the Muslim world, right? It was not that long ago, 24 years ago. I remember 9/11. I remember watching. I was in college at the time. I worked late that evening. I got up late and I turned on the news and I saw the first plane flying into the building. So I went through all of that. I went through all of that period, right? So it doesn't seem like, I'm old. So if you're like, oh, the early 2000s, I'm like, oh, that was yesterday. So I'm old enough now to where that doesn't seem like it was that long ago. And the whole justification, we're going to fight them over there, so we don't have to fight them over here. Yeah, we lost that battle. We did. They're here. If you don't believe me, go to Minneapolis, go to Dearborn. Right? We need to stop apologizing for this. We need to stop trying to convince people that we're not racist. No, Islam is an idolatrous, disgusting, violent religion. You say, well, not all Muslims are. I'm not saying all Muslims are equally violent. I'm saying their religion is, and we ought to be terribly concerned about it. So anyway, I believe New York is the play, right? It's the Statue of Liberty. You have the biggest city. I believe it's still the biggest city in our country. It's the financial capital of the world. To have a Muslim communist as the mayor is a massive, massive victory that Muslims all over the world will recognize as a massive, massive victory, as a form of infiltration, and I would even argue colonization of New York, right? The biggest city in our country. So it's not just a left-right thing. It's not just, we're going to get this. This is the new wing of the Democratic Party. The progressives have the energy and the money, and this is, he's an anti-Trump guy. It's not just that. There is considerably more going on. Some of the Democrats may think that. I think they may look at him like a useful idiot. I don't think they should. I think with all of the hot button issues in our country right now, he is the tip of the spear for just about every single one of them. And I think his victory, which it looks like he's going to win, he hasn't yet, mind you, but it looks like he's going to. His victory is essentially a clarion call to Muslims all over the world to come here. And by come here, I mean New York, right? Come to New York. I believe it will fundamentally, New York is already, I don't know the exact numbers, but you probably have almost as many immigrants as you do native born in the city now, or dang close to it, right? So you're right about there. I believe you're going to have a flood of Muslim immigrants coming into that city. So if you look at all of the tension with ICE, all of the tension with immigration, and all of these things, and New York being a sanctuary city for that, I think we are opening Pandora's box, and we don't really know what's going to come out of that. My thought is it's going to be very, very bad, right? They've been playing the Christian nationalism card hard for a while now, and how terribly concerned we should be about Christian nationalism. If you have a Muslim commie-run city, the biggest city in America, when you have immigration as being one of the biggest issues in our country right now, and then you dump a bunch of race on top of that and a bunch of religion on top of that, you have now an actual conflict. That's not just a political conflict, right? We're not left and right. Now you have a religious conflict that is unavoidable and are like two trains heading at each other on the same track. That is going to boil over, and it's not going to be good. And they're not going to compromise. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Dearborn now, where you have like nobody cares about Michigan, right? But Dearborn is run by Muslims. They have a Muslim mayor, and they have Muslim prayers that they play over the intercoms now, which is against every city ordinance, but nobody cares and nobody does anything about it. And you have the mayor openly saying, if Christians have a problem with it, they should just leave the city, type thing. So that's it's bad. It's really bad. So, put that on steroids, and you're going to have New York in I believe a very, very short amount of time. And we should all be terrified by that. So you have not just immigration, but now you have race and religion thrown on top of that. And that is going to be a drum. I believe that they're going to beat repeatedly because they've beat it repeatedly successfully in the past. The difference now is the religious component of it, Christianity being white Christian nationalism being pitted against the Islamic commies and these nice, gentle immigrants who just want a better way of life. And by better way of life, I mean fundamentally change that city into an Islamic hellhole like the rest of the world. Um, you know, because their countries are such shitholes, they have to come here and turn our country into theirs. So I believe those things are going to be front and center. And the sad thing is, you have so many soft, mealy-mouthed, effeminate, limp-wristed, pansy-ass Christians that have been, they're against Christian nationalism, and they want to let you know that they're a kinder, gentler, more sensitive version of this inclusive Christianity, and they don't like those Christian nationalists. They're all bad guys. I would say, yeah, that group that I just spoke of is really reflective of a vast majority of Republicans and the church in Michigan, and they did not and they will not stand against the Muslims, who are, by the way, reproducing at a significantly faster rate than native-born Americans, which is something to be very, very concerned about. If we do nothing, if we do nothing, let's say New York, let's say there isn't this flood of Muslim immigrants like I'm predicting. Well, give it 10 years, and those numbers are still going to have advanced far more significantly than what native-borns are. Those numbers, what I'm saying is those percentages are still going to change significantly in their favor. But I do think that the immigration that they're going to allow into that city is going to influence it much faster than what anybody anticipates. So I think there are certainly some in our country that have the resolve and the backbone to push against that, to see the threat, but I don't think nearly enough do. So I say all that to say, this is just a warning. I look at that and I go, this is bad. This is very, very bad. And you have to see not just, he won an election. You have to see the secondary and tertiary effects of that. You have to see, it's not just a pebble in a pond, it's a boulder in a pond, and the wake is going to be much bigger as it goes all the way out to the shore. So I look at that, and part of me says, okay, laissez-faire, let them do their thing. Anybody that's there is going to be absolutely miserable. If you have half of a brain, get out of the city, right? Get out, do whatever you have to do. We're in a time and going into a time where sacrifices are going to have to be made, right? These are things that you're not just going to be able to wait out. Everybody is going to be doubling down. And if you're in a blue city like that, it's time to leave, right? It's time to leave. It's valiant that you want to stay and fight, but the battle's already lost. It's time to leave. It's time to lick your wounds and regroup and then get a game plan together. So just kind of my warning, what I'm seeing. I hope that's not the case, but I fear that it may be, and I think it should be a concern for all of us. I think, and this is always the case. We should unapologetically proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ, and for the love of everything holy and sacred, stop apologizing for it and stop compromising to these types of things, to secularism and to Islam, right? All of Christ for all of life, right? Abraham Kuyper said, right, Christ looked at the world and said, there is not a square inch of this world. He said, there's not a square inch of this world that Christ does not look at and say, mine, right? He cares how we educate our children. He cares how we love our wives. He cares how we conduct our business. He cares how we vote, right? All of it to the glory of Christ. Like, policy matters. These things, like secularism, Islam, these worldviews are idolatrous and antichrist. They're abominations to him. These are not things that you can play nicey nice with. That doesn't mean that you have to be unkind to Muslims or to secularists, right? We should be able to speak the truth in love, but you never, ever compromise with idolatry. or with these things, right? So the age of soft, mealy mouth, effeminate, pansy-ass Christianity is over. It will not survive either secularism or Islam. And if you see movements or people trying to play nicey nice with either one of those things, you have to know how compromised they are and the destructive wake that will come in those people's paths. And we're also at a time where when you see guys that are so compromised, it's probably best to look at the money trail and say, how are these guys able to operate the way that they do, right? So that's just my warning and something to pray about and consider. And all of those things. So just a shameless plug here before I close. I want to plug my book, Gentlemen, This is the Gospel. You can buy it on Amazon for $12.99. It's a book written to men, for men, by a man. It's small. It's punchy. I wrote it as a call to men to unapologetically grab hold of the gospel and run it downfield. Jesus died, Jesus rose, and Jesus is Lord. To unapologetically proclaim those things in every area of their life. I believe you need this book. I believe you should buy this book for others. All of the feedback that I've gotten from men that have read this book have said, amen, awesome, hallelujah. It was simple. It was punchy. It was much needed. It was a fantastic reminder to keep the main thing, always the main thing, which is the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, and what our mission is in the world because of that. What do we do now with that? How do we take back our life, our communities, and all of these institutions and the like? So it's a ton of fun. I love it. All of the feedback I've gotten has been fantastic, and I commend it to you. There's so much going on in the world, and right, I get it. We want to shine the light of Christ on all of it. We want to say, okay, how as a Christian, what does our worldview have to say about this, that, and the other? I get it. I get all of it. Right? Shine the light of Christ on all of it. However, we ought never forget the main thing, and we need to keep the main thing always the main thing, and we need to take that ball and just run it downfield, right? Put your shoulder pads down, put your chin in your chest, and just smash into the enemy and knock him on his ass, right? So there you go. That's my commendation to you. I think you'll enjoy the book, and that's all I got for you today. Have a good day. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media and all the places.